I worked graveyard shifts for 7 years straight, saving every penny until I had $245,000. Monday morning, my account showed $11.42. My parents had transferred everything out. Their dream house sits on the lake, stone fireplace and marble kitchen island gleaming. They bragged to relatives, called it the family nest. I stood on their lawn, bank statement trembling in my hand, silent. I didn't call the cops. I called a lawyer, a notary, and a small bank about to sell off the very mortgage on that house. They stole my money to buy it. I'd used the law and their own debt to make it mine. My name is Amelia Grant, but everyone calls me Mia. At 34, I've spent more nights in the air than in my own bed, flying medical rescues for Northbridge Air Rescue out of Greyhaven, Ohio. The job pays well hazard pay, night differential. Over time, everything adds up when you're willing to take the calls nobody else wants at 3:15 a.m. That Monday started like any other. We'd just touched down after transporting a cardiac patient from a rural hospital to Cleveland Clinic. The rotor blades were still winding down, that familiar kerosene smell mixing with morning dew. When I pulled out my phone to check my savings account, I was finally ready to put an offer on a small condo near the airport. Nothing fancy, just mine. The screen showed $11.42. I refreshed the app 3 times. Same number. My hands went numb despite the thermal flight gloves. 7 years. 7 years of instant ramen, thrift store scrubs, and saying no to every dinner invitation that cost more than $10. $245,000 doesn't just vanish, except it does when your parents have access. Marjorie and Carl Whitaker. I stopped calling them Mom and Dad years ago, though they never noticed had always been masters of financial manipulation wrapped in family obligation. Sweetheart, we should pool our resources, Marjorie had said 2 years ago. Wine glass in hand, her voice honey sweet. The family fund gets better interest rates. You know how banks work, they give preferential treatment to larger accounts. Carl had nodded along, adjusting his knockoff designer glasses. It's what families do. Mia, we look out for each other. Besides, you'll need our credit history when you're ready to buy property. I should have known. God, I should have known when they insisted on being co-signers just for emergencies, when they needed my social security number for tax purposes, when Marjorie casually mentioned she'd added herself to my account to help manage things while you're flying. My phone buzzed. Family group chat, the one I usually muted. A photo loaded slowly. Marjorie and Carl standing in front of a wooden sign, 17 Alder Lane, Lake Marrow. Behind them, a 2-story colonial with cedar shingles and wraparound porch. Marjorie's caption read, "Dreams do come true, our forever home." My cousin Beth immediately hearted it. Gorgeous. When's the housewarming? Next month. Marjorie replied, "We want everything perfect first. The marble countertops arrive Thursday. Marble countertops. With my money." I sat in the cockpit for another 20 minutes, watching the sun creep over the tarmac. My overnight bag smelled like antiseptic and jet fuel. Inside was yesterday's unopened granola bar dinner I'd skipped to save $4. The transaction history told the story in clinical detail. Thursday, 11:47 p.m., while I was mid-flight with a pediatric trauma transfer to Whitaker Household Growth Fund. Friday, 8:03 a.m., transfer to Granite Prairie Bank. Friday, 2:15 p.m., wire to Premier Title Company. They'd planned it perfectly, waited until I was unreachable, 30,000 feet up with a dying kid who needed every second of my attention. I drove to their rental, the one they'd complained about for 15 years. The neighbors are too close. Marjorie would sigh. The kitchen's too small for proper entertaining. Carl would add, "We deserve better after everything we've sacrificed." Their car was gone, but I still had a key. The house smelled like potpourri and lies. On the kitchen table, between Marjorie's reading glasses and Carl's blood pressure medication, lay the closing documents, public records, technically. But seeing my money converted to their down payment, that was something else. Escrow summary $300,000 purchase price. Down payment $200,000. Earnest money $20,000. Closing costs $18,500. They'd even used my money for the inspection fee. A sticky note in Marjorie's handwriting. Call contractor about boat dock. Carl wants it ready by Memorial Day. A boat dock. They didn't own a boat. My phone rang. Marjorie. Mia, honey, did you see the house? Isn't it perfect? The previous owners had excellent taste, though we'll obviously need to update some things. Oh, and there's a guest room with its own bathroom. You'll love it when you visit. When I visit. The room they bought with my money. In the house they stole. How did you pay for it? My voice came out steadier than expected. Oh, you know, we've been saving, and the family fund helped. Of course. Your contribution was so generous. Sweetheart, this is really an investment in all our futures. Contribution. Generous. Investment. That was every penny I had. Silence. Then, practiced surprise. Sweetheart, you agreed to this. Don't you remember? We discussed it at Christmas. You said family comes first. I hung up. Standing in their empty kitchen, I made 3 decisions. First, I wouldn't cry not one tear for people who'd raised me to be their retirement plan. Second, I wouldn't involve the police. Not yet criminal cases could take years, and they'd play the confused elderly parents card. Third, I would get that house. Not the money. The house itself. They wanted a dream home. I'd make it their nightmare. The invitation came Wednesday. Gold-embossed cardstock. Marjorie's favorite pretension. Join us for an intimate dinner to celebrate our new beginning at 17 Alder Lane. Saturday, 7 p.m. Cocktail attire suggested. Cocktail attire. She knew I owned exactly one decent dress. Bought secondhand for a colleague's wedding. I went anyway. Needed to see the house. Document everything. Understand what $245,000 had bought them. The GPS led me through increasingly expensive neighborhoods until Lake Merrow spread out like spilled ink under the evening sky. Number 17 sat on a prime lot, landscape lighting turning the cedars gold. Inside, Marjorie held court in a silk blouse I'd never seen before. Mia's here. She air-kissed my cheek, her new perfume aggressive. Come see the kitchen, the island is Brazilian granite. The tour was deliberate torture. Carl walked us through each room like a realtor, dropping prices. The previous owners spent $40,000 on the landscape alone. The fireplace imported limestone. That chandelier was custom-made in Vermont. Every relative nodded appreciatively. Aunt Carol ran her fingers along the marble backsplash. You've really made it. Marge, this is what success looks like. We've been blessed, Marjorie said, catching my eye. When family supports each other, anything's possible. The dining room table mahogany. Carl noted, not veneer, was set for 12. I sat between cousins who compared vacation plans while Marjorie served salmon on china I recognized from an estate sale website I'd browsed last week. Even the plates were purchased with my money. Mia flies medical helicopters, Marjorie told Uncle Rich. Such important work. Of course, we worry about her constantly. Those night shifts can't be healthy. But profitable, Carl added, winking. She's always been smart with money. Gets it from us. I excused myself to find the bathroom, but turned into Carl's office instead. His desk was a mess of Triumph mortgage documents, insurance papers, HOA welcome packet. I photographed everything, noting the letterhead from Whitaker Household Growth Fund. LLC, they'd created a legal entity just to move my money. In the drawer, carbon copies of wire transfers. And there, barely visible under the desk lamp, an email printout. Reauthorization for transfer. The signature at the bottom was mine, except I'd never signed it. I pulled up my email on my phone. No such message existed in my sent folder. They'd created a secondary email, Amelia Grant, family edgemail, com, and forged electronic consent. Finding everything okay. Carl stood in the doorway, bourbon in hand. Just admiring your view. I gestured to the window overlooking the lake. Beautiful, isn't it? You know, Mia, this house is really for all of us. Your mother and I won't be around forever. Someday, this will be yours. How generous. I held up my phone, showing the bank statement. Considering I already paid for it, his face didn't change. You agreed to support the family fund. We have documentation. Forged documentation. He sipped his bourbon. Prove it. That's when I understood. This wasn't impulse or desperation. They'd planned this for months, maybe years. Created shell companies, fake emails, paper trails. They'd probably consulted lawyers, found the exact line between unethical and illegal, and danced right along it. The transfer happened while I was in the air, I said. I couldn't have authorized it. You pre-authorized it. Set up automatic transfers. Very responsible of you. He pulled out a folder from his filing cabinet. See your signature. The document was dated 6 months ago. A limited power of attorney for financial matters, in case of emergency or inability to communicate. The signature was close to mine. Close enough that I had to look twice. You practiced, I said. I have no idea what you mean. Carl set down his glass. Mia, you're upset. I understand. Change is hard. But this is what's best for the family. The value will only increase. Consider it an investment. I want my money back. What money? You mean the family fund that's been allocated, spent, transformed into something lasting. He gestured around the room. Instead of sitting in some savings account losing value to inflation. It's here. Solid. Real. Back at dinner, Marjorie was describing their plans. The dock will be perfect for summer gatherings, and Carl wants to add a gazebo by the water. We're thinking of calling the estate Whitaker's Rest. An estate. With a name. How wonderful that Mia could help make this happen. Aunt Carol said, Family supporting family? Everyone turned to me. Marjorie's smile was razor sharp, daring me to make a scene. Yes, I said. I've certainly invested everything in this house. See? Marjorie beamed. She understands. It's not about individual ownership, it's about legacy. After dessert tiramisu from the expensive bakery downtown, I stood by the limestone fireplace, counting heartbeats like I do during emergency flights. Steady, controlled, professional. Carl was showing Uncle Rich his new study. Marjorie was promising Carol a full tour of the master suite. They moved through their stolen house like royalty, every gesture telegraphing success they hadn't earned. I touched the mantel, solid limestone, cool, real. Worth about $15,000, if Carl's bragging was accurate. It's beautiful, I said to no one. What's that, dear? Marjorie appeared with coffee. The house. It's everything you dreamed of. Oh, Mia. She touched my shoulder. It's everything we dreamed of. This is ours. All of ours. Yes, I said, memorizing every detail, the crown molding, the hardwood floors, the view of Lake Merrow through French doors. It certainly will be. She missed the future tense. They always did miss the important details. Too busy painting their elaborate pictures to notice the cracks in the frame. Noah Pike worked at Meridian Title and Escrow, handling closings for half of Greyhaven's real estate transactions. We'd met 2 years ago when I'd tried to buy a foreclosure that fell through. He remembered me the helicopter pilot who'd asked more questions about title insurance than anyone he'd ever met. Mia Grant, he said when I walked into his office Monday morning. Finally ready to buy markets tough right now. I need information about a recent closing. 17 Alder Lane. His fingers flew across the keyboard. The Whitaker purchase, closed 10 days ago. Why? They're my parents. They used my money without permission. Noah's expression shifted from professional to concerned. How much? All of it. $245,000. He whistled low. Shit. Sorry. That's... Do you have proof? I spread out my documentation bank statements, forged signatures, timeline of transfers. Noah studied each page, occasionally pulling up screens on his computer to cross-reference. The property's held in trust, he said. MJC Whitaker Living Trust, Marjorie, Carl, and who's J? There is no J, probably stands for joint. Smart, Harder to challenge a trust than individual ownership. He pulled up another screen. Mortgage through Granite Prairie Bank. They put $200 down on a $300,000 purchase. Borrowed $100,000. That's aggressive for retirees. They're not retired. Carl sells insurance part-time. Marjorie substitutes at elementary schools. So minimal verified income. Noah made notes. They barely qualified. Granite Prairie must have weighted the down payment heavily. He looked up. You need a lawyer. Already called one. Lila Rosenthal. Good choice. She handled my divorce. Bloodless but effective. He printed several documents. Here's the chain of title. Deed recording. Mortgage details. Lila will want these. Lila's office occupied the top floor of a converted Victorian downtown. She looked exactly like her reputation-sharp suit. Sharper mind. Zero patience for dishonesty. Theft by parents, she said after reviewing everything. Legally complex, emotionally devastating. I charge $300 per hour. Can you afford me? I have credit cards. And a retirement account I can borrow against? Don't. She leaned back. Not yet. Let's explore options. 3 potential paths: criminal charges, civil suit, or financial warfare. Explain the third option. A small smile. Your parents are leveraged. $100,000 mortgage on fixed income. They're betting on your continued silence and support. What if we remove both? She outlined the strategy constructive trust claim, arguing my money created equitable interest in the property. Unjust enrichment, they couldn't keep benefits obtained through deception, fraud and conversion, the forged documents. And the nuclear option, lease pendens. It's a notice of pending litigation recorded against the property. Lila explained. Makes it nearly impossible to sell or refinance. Clouds the title. Banks hate it. Insurance companies hate it more. Do it. Not yet. First, we investigate. She pulled out a legal pad. I need everything. Every financial record, every communication, every witness who heard them discuss the house. And we need forensic accounting. Marcus Chen, the accountant she recommended, worked from home. His dining table covered in monitors. He traced money like a bloodhound, following digital footprints through 3 accounts, 2 LLCs, and 1 trust. Beautiful work, he said, meaning the fraud. They layered it perfectly. Look, he showed me a flowchart. Your money goes into Whitaker Household Growth Fund, LLC. That entity loans it to MJC Whitaker Trust. The trust buys the house. On paper, you gave money to an LLC, not directly for the house. Harder to prove connection. But not impossible. Nothing's impossible with enough documentation. He pulled up another screen. They made mistakes, used the same IP address for all transactions. The fake email created from Marjorie's laptop digital fingerprints match her shopping accounts. And this, he highlighted a transfer. They moved $23,000 to a personal checking account. Spent it on furniture, the closing dinner, new clothes. Personal use breaks the corporate veil. By Thursday, we had everything mapped. Lila scheduled a meeting to discuss next steps. But Noah called first. Mia, you need to know something. Granite Prairie Bank is selling their mortgage portfolio. Your parents' loan is included. Selling to who? Investment groups. Happens all the time. Banks package underperforming loans. Sell them at discount. But here's the interesting part. The Whitaker mortgage is flagged. Flagged. High risk. They lied on the application, claimed rental income they don't have. And Carl's been sending letters complaining about the adjustable rate, threatening to default if they don't modify. Banks don't like threats. My pulse quickened. How much discount? Typically, 70 to 80 cents on the dollar. For problematic loans, sometimes 50. Who brokers these sales? Specialty firms. I know a guy handles distressed debt. Want his number. I met Derek Vance that afternoon. He looked like a shark in a suit, which was exactly what I needed. You want to buy your parents' mortgage, he said after I explained. Not a question. Through an LLC, anonymously. Juneberry Capital, LLC, I said, having already filed the paperwork online. Poetic. Granite Prairie's portfolio goes to auction next month. 90-day window after that for challenges. Your parents behind on payments? Not yet. They will be. Carl's already complained twice about the rate. One missed payment, and they're in default territory. He slid a contract across. My fee's 5%. You'll need proof of funds. I can get a hard money loan against my retirement account. Expensive? Not as expensive as letting them keep my house. Derek smiled. I like you. This is personal. Extremely. Good. Personal deals are my favorite. They always close. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept running numbers, scenarios, contingencies. At 3:45, my phone buzzed. Marjorie, texting from her new house. Mia, the master bathroom has heated floors. Can you imagine your father pretends it's excessive, but I catch him standing there every morning. You should visit soon. Your room is ready. My room. In my house. Heated with my money. I texted back, soon, because she was right. I would visit soon, with a sheriff, a locksmith, and an eviction notice. The auction happened faster than expected. Granite Prairie Bank, facing regulatory pressure over their lending practices, moved up the portfolio sale. Derek called me at 5:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. You have 6 hours to wire proof of funds. 50,000 shows you're serious. You'll need the full amount within 10 days of winning. I sat in my apartment, still in scrubs from an overnight shift, and did the math. Hard money loan against my 401k would give me 60,000. Credit cards could float another 20. If I sold my car, that was 8 more. Still short. What if we don't bid on the full amount? I asked. Explain. The mortgage is 100,000. What if Juneberry bids 70, takes the loss up front? Ballsy. But if another bidder goes to 71, you're out. Who else would bid on a flagged mortgage with inconsistent payments and borrowers threatening default? Derek laughed. Fair point. 70 it is. The wire transfer felt like jumping off a cliff. 50,000, my entire 401k loan gone in seconds. But it was still my money, just changing shape. From retirement fund to weapon. The auction was online. Anonymous bidder numbers only. Derek handled the technical side while I watched from his office. The Whitaker mortgage came up in a bundle of 5 non-performing assets. Opening bid, 50,000 for the package. Derek read, that's 10 per mortgage. So, someone bid 55. Derek countered with 60. Silence for 3 minutes. 65 from another bidder. They're fishing, Derek said, testing resolve. We went to 70. 4 minutes of nothing. Then the screen flashed, sold to bidder 47, Juneberry Capital. LLC now owned my parents' mortgage. Derek pulled out champagne apparently. He kept it for special closings. Phase 1 complete. What's Phase 2? Acceleration. The mortgage documents were beautiful in their strictness. Page after page of covenants, conditions, requirements. Carl and Marjorie had initialed each one, probably without reading. The acceleration clause was particularly elegant. Any violation of terms allowed the note holder to demand full payment immediately, within 48 hours. I had the original mortgage documents couriered to my lawyer's office. Lila reviewed them with the satisfaction of a chef examining perfect ingredients. They're already in violation, she said. While look Covenant Section 12. Property must maintain adequate insurance at all times. But here, she pulled up screenshots from Marjorie's social media. She posted about letting the insurance lapse for 3 days while switching providers to save money. 3 days is enough. 1 hour is enough. But it gets better. Section 18. No short-term rentals without lender approval. Carl listed the house on vacation rental sites last week. I'd seen the listing. Lakefront paradise perfect for family gatherings. $500 a night. 2-night minimum. Photos of my money transformed into lifestyle marketing. And the killing blow, Lila continued, is the HOA violation. Boat dock construction requires permits. They started building without them. The HOA sent a cease and desist. That's Section 21 compliance with all local regulations. So we can accelerate immediately. We can, but first, we paper them. Create an undeniable trail. The first letter went out Thursday. Certified mail. Signature required. From Juneberry Capital's servicing agent Derek's company, informing the Whitakers their mortgage had been sold. Standard language. Nothing alarming. New payment address. Same terms. Carl called the servicing company immediately. Derek played me the recorded call. "This is predatory," Carl shouted. "We have a relationship with Granite Prairie. Sir, mortgage transfers are routine. Your terms remain unchanged. I want to speak to someone at Juneberry Capital. They don't interface directly with borrowers. All communications go through us." The second letter arrived Monday. Notice of insurance lapse, requesting proof of continuous coverage. Marjorie provided documents showing the new policy, but the 3-day gap was already documented. Letter 3. Wednesday. Notice of HOA violation, demanding immediate compliance and proof of permits. Letter 4. Friday. Notice of unauthorized short-term rental activity. Each violation was meticulously documented, notarized, filed. Lila prepared the acceleration notice while I watched. One paragraph that changed everything. Due to multiple covenant violations as documented, Juneberry Capital hereby exercises its right to accelerate the full balance of the note. Total amount due $98,547.20 payable within 30 days. They can't possibly pay, Lila said. I know. They'll try to negotiate. Let them. The acceleration notice required personal service. I hired the best process server in town, a former cop named Eddie who'd once served papers to a senator during a live TV interview. Where and when, he asked. Sunday dinner. They host family every week. Witnesses. Nice. But I had something better planned. Marjorie had announced another gathering, a mortgage burning party to celebrate paying off their old rental. The irony was too perfect. They'd invited 40 people to witness their financial freedom. Saturday night. I couldn't eat. Kept checking the Juneberry Capital email account Derek had set up. Nothing from the Whitakers yet. They'd received the acceleration notice in 18 hours. My phone rang at 11:15 p.m. Noah. Mia, heads up. Carl just called me at home. Wants to refinance immediately. Says their current lender is predatory. I told him I don't work weekends, but he's panicking. Did you mention I'm your client? Of course not, but he name-dropped you. Said you'd vouch for them. Confirm they have family money coming in. Family money. Even now, they assumed I'd cave. What did you tell him? That refinancing takes weeks, sometimes months, and no bank will touch a mortgage in default or with an acceleration notice. He knows about the acceleration. Not yet, but he knows something's coming. He kept asking about hostile lenders and predatory practices. He's scared. Good. Fear was what I'd felt checking my emptied bank account. Fear was what they'd stolen along with my money. At midnight, I stood in my empty apartment I'd sold everything worth selling to fund Juneberry and looked at the photo of the lake house Marjorie kept posting. Tomorrow, their party would become something else entirely. Tomorrow, the real acceleration would begin, not just of their mortgage, but of everything. The civil suit, the lease pendants, the criminal complaint I'd finally decided to file, all timed to hit simultaneously. A legal meteor shower they'd never see coming. They'd taught me, after all. Take what you want, create the paper trail later, dare the other person to fight back. The difference was, I'd learned to fight better. Monday morning, 7:15 a.m., the HOA president called Carl. I knew because Carl immediately called the servicing company screaming about coordinated harassment. Derek had the call on speaker. You're behind this, Carl yelled. First, the mortgage transfer. Now, the HOA is threatening daily fines. The HOA issue was purely coincidental. I hadn't contacted them. But Carl's boat dock construction had pissed off 3 neighbors who'd reported him for blocking lake access and building without permits. The cease and desist was real. The $500 daily fines started accumulating Wednesday. Tuesday brought the insurance crisis. Marjorie had switched carriers to save $200 a month, but the new company did a surprise inspection. The report was damning unpermitted dock construction, code violations on the deck railings, and most critically, the wood stove in the basement wasn't properly ventilated. "We're canceling coverage effective immediately," the agent told Marjorie. I knew because she posted a tearful video in the family group chat about bureaucratic nightmares. Without insurance, they were in massive violation of the mortgage terms. Worse, no other carrier would touch them with pending code violations. Lila filed the civil suit Wednesday at 2 p.m., along with the LI's pendants that would freeze any attempt to sell or refinance. The court clerk date-stamped it at 2:17 p.m. By 2:30, it was public record. "Now they can't move the asset," Lila explained. "No bank will refinance with a clouded title. No buyer will touch it. They're locked in." Thursday, Carl tried to get clever. He showed up at Meridian Title with a quitclaim deed, trying to transfer the property to his brother in Florida. Noah called me immediately. I had to tell him that's not how it works. The Ellis pendants follows the property, not the owner. Plus, transferring assets during litigation is fraud. What did he say? He accused me of being part of a conspiracy. Said he knew you were involved. I played dumb. But Mia, he's getting desperate. Desperate was calling 17 lawyers in 2 days. Lila's paralegal kept a log of firms contacted. Each one declined after hearing about the acceleration notice, lis pendens, and forged documents. "No attorney wants to defend obvious fraud," Lila said, "especially when the evidence is this clean." Friday's city code inspection was brutal. The inspector, responding to anonymous complaints about construction noise and permit violations, found 12 violations. The boat dock alone required 4 different permits Carl hadn't pulled. The deck exceeded setback requirements. The basement renovation hadn't been inspected. Stop work orders went up on every project. Estimated compliance cost $38,000. The process server, my secret weapon, had been watching the house all week. "They're not leaving," Eddie reported. "Curtains drawn, cars in the garage. They know something's coming." Sunday's party is still on. 43 confirmed guests according to the Facebook event, catered by that Italian place downtown. Perfect. They'd spent my money on catering to celebrate their theft. Saturday, I worked a 12-hour shift, focusing on each patient to keep my mind off tomorrow. At 11:23 p.m., dispatch called multi-vehicle accident, needed every available pilot. I almost said no, then realized I needed the distraction. And the overtime pay for Juneberry's war chest. Sunday arrived gray and drizzling. Pathetic fallacy. My high school English teacher would have called it weather-matching mood. Eddie texted at 1 p.m. Guests arriving. Valet parking. They hired valet parking. Of course they did. I arrived at 2:45. Parallel parking where I could see the front door. Through the windows, party lights twinkled. Marjorie had strung them herself, posting about creating ambiance while her world was about to collapse. At 3 p.m., Eddie walked up the circular driveway in his best suit, looking like another guest. The valet even offered to park his car. He declined, walked to the front door, rang the bell. Carl answered, champagne flute in hand. Through my binoculars, I watched his face change as Eddie presented documents. "Carl Whitaker, I have legal documents requiring personal service." Carl tried to close the door. Eddie's foot was already there. "Sir, you've been served." The acceleration notice, the civil complaint, the LI's pendants, the forensic accounting report showing the money trail, all handed over while 43 guests pretended not to watch. Marjorie appeared, her voice carrying across the lawn. "What is this? We're hosting a party." Eddie was already walking away. Carl stood in the doorway, papers in hand, his face the color of old paper. I waited 5 minutes, then sent a group text to the family chat. "Since you're celebrating property ownership, you should know Juneberry Capital owns your mortgage now. I am Juneberry Capital. Every penny you stole has been documented. You have 22 days to pay in full or face foreclosure." My phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails. Aunt Carol. "What have you done? Cousin Beth. This is insane. Uncle Rich, family doesn't do this. Family. They kept using that word. Marjorie's call came at 4:18 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. Mia, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. Please call me. We can work this out. We're family. This is all fixable. Please. Carl's voicemail at 4:32. You've made your point. Let's discuss this like adults. No need for lawyers. At 5 p.m., a text from Marjorie. The guests have left. Please come over so we can talk. I drove by instead of stopping. Through the windows, I could see them at the dining table, papers spread out. Carl on his phone, Marjorie crying. The party lights were still on, twinkling mockingly over their shattered celebration. Monday morning, 8 a.m. They tried the foreclosure prevention hotline. Derek had the recording. We're victims of predatory lending. Marjorie sobbed. Our daughter is doing this. She's trying to steal our house. Ma'am, according to the records, you're in default on multiple covenant violations. The acceleration is legal. But we're her parents. That's not a recognized defense against mortgage default. By noon, they'd hired the only lawyer who'd take the case, a strip mall attorney who usually handled traffic tickets. He filed a motion to dismiss based on family relationship conflicts of interest. Lila laughed when she saw it. That's not even a real legal doctrine. This will take 5 minutes in court. The HOA fines kept accumulating. The insurance cancellation was final. The city posted a 30-day compliance deadline with criminal penalties for non-compliance. And every day, the acceleration clock ticked closer to foreclosure. They'd stolen my future. Now I was stealing theirs, legally, methodically, using every tool they'd taught me to ignore while they picked my pockets. The house on Lake Merrow was about to change owners again. The second housewarming party was scheduled for Saturday, October 15th. Marjorie posted about it Wednesday, trying to maintain appearances. Despite some temporary family challenges, we're blessed to share our beautiful home with loved ones. Cocktails at 6, dinner at 7. She'd tagged 40 relatives, clearly hoping to rally support through social pressure. The comments were telling half offered vague encouragement. The other half stayed silent. I knew they were hemorrhaging money. The forensic accountant had tracked their spending $8,000 on furniture the first week, $1,200 on the catered party, $3,000 on landscaping. They'd burned through the $23,000 they'd kept aside in just 3 weeks. Now, with no insurance and mounting fines, they were trapped. Thursday night, Carl tried a new approach. He showed up at my apartment at 11:45 p.m., looking haggard. We need to talk, he said through the door chain. My lawyer advised no direct contact. Mia, please. Your mother is sick over this. She's not sleeping, not eating. She seemed fine posting photos of her marble countertops yesterday. His face darkened. You're enjoying this. I'm recovering stolen property through legal channels. We're your parents. No, you're defendants in a civil suit who happen to share my DNA. He tried to wedge his foot in the door. You won't win this. I know people, judges, city councilmen. This town runs on relationships and documented evidence. Speaking of which, I held up my phone. Recording. You're being recorded attempting to intimidate a witness in active litigation. He backed away, but not before saying, Saturday's party will happen. Everyone will see what kind of daughter you really are. Perfect. That's exactly what I was counting on. Friday afternoon, Eddie the process server called. You want me at the party again? No, this time I'll handle it personally. That's risky. Emotions run high at family confrontations. They stole everything from me in front of family. They'll lose it the same way. I prepared carefully. Had Lila draft a deed in lieu of foreclosure, a document where they'd voluntarily surrender the property to avoid the humiliation of public auction. Also printed the full forensic accounting report, every forged document, every fraudulent transfer. Saturday arrived crisp and bright, the lake sparkling like broken glass. I dressed carefully the one good suit I'd kept, the one I wore to court hearings for work. Professional, untouchable. I arrived at 6:20 p.m., fashionably late. The valet, a kid from the local high school, recognized me. "Miss Grant, I can't park your car," Mrs. Whitaker said. "I'm not staying long." I handed him $20 and walked past. The house hummed with forced cheer. Marjorie had gone all out again, fresh flowers, hired bartender, the same Italian catering, using credit cards, no doubt, since their accounts were frozen by the Ellie's pendants. I entered through the French doors facing the lake. Conversations stopped like someone had hit pause. 40 pairs of eyes tracked me crossing the living room. Marjorie materialized in a cocktail dress I recognized from her Instagram shopping haul. "Mia, you came?" I said I would visit soon. Carl flanked her, hands clenched. "This is a private gathering. On property under active foreclosure proceedings." I pulled out my phone, started recording openly. "I'm documenting the condition of my asset." "Your asset." Uncle Rich stepped forward. "Marjorie, Carl, what's she talking about?" I smiled. "They didn't tell you I own the mortgage on this house. They're in default. Foreclosure auction is scheduled for November 1st. The silence stretched like taffy. Then Aunt Carol, "Is this true?" Marjorie's laugh came out strangled. "It's a misunderstanding. Family dispute. Nothing serious." "Fraud is serious," I said, pulling out the forensic report. "Would anyone like to see the evidence? How they forged my signature-created fake email accounts, stole $245,000 while I was flying a dying child to Cleveland Clinic." "Mia, please." Marjorie's voice cracked. "Not here." "Why not you celebrated stealing my money here? You invited everyone to admire what you bought with it." I gestured to the marble, the chandelier, the view. "Every inch of this house represents 7 years of my night shifts, overtime, missed meals." I started reading from the report, my voice carrying over the lake. "Thursday, September 8th, 11:47 p.m. Unauthorized transfer initiated. Forged digital signature timestamp 11:51 p.m. I was 30,000 feet up, performing CPR on an 8-year-old. Cousin Beth covered her mouth. Uncle Rich stepped back from Carl. "They planned it," I continued. "Created shell companies, practiced my signature, waited until I was unreachable, then threw parties to celebrate their theft." Carl lunged forward. "Shut up, you ungrateful." 2 cousins grabbed him. His face was purple, spit flying. "We raised you, fed you, gave you everything. You gave me nothing I didn't pay for 3 times over," I said calmly. "Every birthday gift came with a guilt trip. Every family dinner included a request for money. You didn't raise a daughter, you raised a retirement fund." Marjorie was sobbing now, mascara streaming. "How can you do this? We're your parents." "Exactly, parents, who were supposed to protect me, not rob me." I pulled out the deed in lieu. "Sign this. Surrender the house. I'll let you walk away without criminal charges." "Never." Carl broke free, grabbed the papers, tore them in half. "You want this house, take it from us." "I will. November 1st, 10 a.m., courthouse steps." I looked around the room, meeting every eye. "You're all invited to the auction. Watch them lose everything they stole." I pulled out the audio recorder I'd brought, set it on the marble island. "Oh, and Marjorie, remember this." Her voice filled the room, from a call she didn't know was recorded. "Of course we took it. She owes us. Do you know how expensive it was to raise her? This is payback. She'll get over it, she always does when we take her money." The room erupted, relatives shouting, Marjorie wailing, Carl threatening to call the police. I walked out through the same French doors, leaving chaos behind. At my car, Aunt Carol caught up. "Mia, wait." I turned. "Good for you," she said quietly. "We all knew something was off about the sudden house purchase." Marjorie always complained about being broke. Then suddenly, mansion on the lake. She pressed something into my hand. "Your grandmother's ring. Marjorie sold it to me last year. Said you didn't want it. I think she lied about that too." The ring I'd begged to inherit. The only thing I'd wanted from my grandmother. Sold. like everything else about me was just currency to them. "Thank you," I managed. "Finish this," Carol said. "Then move on. Don't let them poison your whole life." As I drove away, I could still hear shouting from the house. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know. The Whitakers' reputation, their carefully constructed image of success destroyed. The foreclosure auction was 2 weeks away. They'd spend it scrambling for money that didn't exist, begging relatives who'd just learned the truth, desperately trying to salvage their stolen dream. While I waited, patient as the sunrise, for the sheriff to hand me the keys to my own house. The Rockford County Courthouse stood like a gray monument to justice delayed, but not denied. November 1st, 9:30 a.m. I sat in the front row of courtroom 3 while Judge Patricia Holbrook reviewed the foreclosure documents. Carl and Marjorie huddled with their bargain attorney, who kept shuffling papers like he might find a miracle between the pages. They'd aged years in 2 weeks, Marjorie's roots showing gray. Carl's suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Your Honor," their lawyer began, voice cracking, "we request a postponement based on familial..." "Denied." Judge Holbrook didn't look up. "This is your third postponement request. The acceleration was legal. Notice was proper. Default is established. Foreclosure sale will proceed as scheduled." "But, Your Honor, the plaintiff is the defendant's daughter. Irrelevant to contract law." She finally looked up, eyes sharp. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, you've had 45 days to cure the default. Have you secured the funds?" Silence. "Have you attempted to negotiate with the note holder?" "She won't negotiate," Carl burst out. "She wants to destroy us. Mr. Whitaker, control yourself." The judge turned to me. "Ms. Grant, as representative of Juneberry Capital, are you prepared to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then we'll reconvene at the courthouse steps at 10 a.m. for the public sale." The walk from courtroom to courthouse steps took 3 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. Word had spread there were maybe 20 onlookers, including several relatives and a reporter from the Greyhaven Gazette who'd been following the story since the party explosion. The auctioneer, a bored-looking county employee, read the legal notice in a monotone that made poetry sound like a grocery list. Property at 17 Alder Lane, Lake Merrow. Minimum bid set at outstanding debt plus costs $98,547.23. 2 other bidders had registered, both professional flippers who bought distressed properties. One whispered to his partner, pointing at the lis pendens notation. They knew the title was clouded with my lawsuit. Too much risk. "Do I have an opening bid?" the auctioneer called. Silence. The flippers stood back. Marjorie grabbed Carl's arm. $98,547.23, I said clearly. "I have 98.5. Do I hear 99? Carl's lawyer frantically whispered to him. They'd tried to get relatives to bid, to salvage something, but nobody would touch it, not after the party revelations, not with the legal mess attached. 98.5 going once. Marjorie started crying, ugly sobs that echoed off the courthouse walls. "Going twice!" Carl shouted. "This is theft she's stealing from her parents." "Sir, please don't interrupt the sale," the auctioneer said, clearly used to dramatics. "Sold to Juneberry Capital, LLC for $98,547.23. The credit bid was beautiful in its simplicity. As the note holder, Juneberry didn't need cash, the debt itself was the payment. I'd essentially bought the house with the very mortgage my parents had taken out with my stolen money. The auctioneer handed me the certificate of sale. Redemption period is 10 days. If the defendants pay in full plus penalties, they can reclaim the property. We all knew they couldn't. They'd burned through relatives' goodwill, maxed out credit cards on lawyers and living expenses, and had no assets left except the furniture they'd bought with my money. 10 days, I told them. Then the sheriff executes the eviction. Carl lunged at me. 2 courthouse security guards grabbed him before he made contact. "You're evil. We gave you life. And I gave you $245,000. We're more than even." Well, Lila met me in her office afterward to handle the paperwork. The title will be messy for a few months, but you've won. The constructive trust claim ensures your equity is recognized. Once the redemption period passes, the house is yours, free and clear. What about criminal charges? The DA's office is reviewing. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. They're looking at serious time if convicted. But that's separate from the civil matter. You have your house. My house. The words felt surreal. Days 7 through 9 of the redemption period, they tried everything. Marjorie called my work, claiming a medical emergency. Carl contacted my ex-boyfriend from college, trying to dig up dirt. They even hired a different lawyer who filed an emergency injunction claiming elder abuse, though at 62 and 64, they barely qualified as elderly. Judge Holbrook denied it in minutes. Being held accountable for theft is not abuse. Day 10 arrived gray and drizzling, like nature knew. I met Sheriff Davidson at the property at 8 a.m. He'd handled hundreds of evictions but admitted this was his first where a child was evicting parents. "You sure about this?" he asked. They had 10 days. They had 45 days before that. They had my whole life to not steal from me. We knocked. Carl answered, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Behind him, boxes were half-packed, furniture askew. "Carl Whitaker, I'm here to execute a writ of possession. You have 1 hour to gather essential belongings. Everything else remains with the property." "This is our home." Marjorie appeared, hair unwashed, no makeup. I'd never seen her without makeup. "Not anymore," Sheriff Davidson said. 1 hour. I waited in my car, watching them carry out suitcases, photo albums, Carl's golf clubs. The furniture stayed. It was purchased after my money became part of the property, making it a fixture. Their attorney had explained this, judging by Carl's screaming about the dining set. At 9 a.m., Sheriff Davidson changed the locks. The cousins they'd called for help stood on the lawn, unsure whether to comfort or condemn. Uncle Rich had offered them his guest room temporarily. He emphasized, Marjorie made one last attempt, walking to my car window. "Mia, please, where will we go?" "Where was I supposed to go when you stole my down payment? We're your parents." "No, you're trespassers on my property." "Sheriff, are we done?" Davidson nodded. "Property is legally transferred. Here are your keys, Ms. Grant." I took them 3 keys on a simple ring. House, garage, boat dock they never finished. Carl shouted from Uncle Rich's car. "You'll regret this. We're still your family." "Family doesn't steal." I called back. "Family doesn't forge signatures or lie or manipulate. You taught me what family means. This is me learning the lesson." They drove away in Uncle Rich's Toyota, their Mercedes repossessed the previous week. I stood on the porch of my house, and watched the taillights disappear. Behind me, Lake Merrow stretched silver and silent. The November air bit sharp, but the house was warm. My stolen money had bought quality heating, at least. I walked through each room, touching surfaces that were finally mine. The marble island where Marjorie had plotted, the limestone fireplace where Carl had boasted, the master bedroom where they'd slept on sheets purchased with my night shifts. All mine now. Legally, completely, irrevocably mine. The house was too big for one person, too fancy for someone who'd lived on ramen for 7 years, but it was mine, and that made it perfect. Tomorrow, I'd start making it home. Today, I just stood in the kitchen, keys heavy in my hand, and felt the weight of justice served cold. The moving truck arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, though I didn't have much to move. Everything I owned fit in 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. The driver looked confused when he saw the house. "This the right address?" 17 Alder Lane. "That's right. Just these boxes for this whole place. Just these." I directed him to the guest room. I couldn't bring myself to take the master yet. That room still smelled like Marjorie's perfume and Carl's aftershave. Maybe in time. While unpacking, I found the snow globe tucked between sweaters, tiny skaters frozen mid-spin on a mirror pond, forever caught in their moment of joy. Marjorie had bought it at a gas station when I was 7, the only birthday gift that hadn't come with a price tag of guilt. "Because you love winter," she'd said, and for once, there'd been no mention of cost or sacrifice. I placed it on the limestone mantel, this cheap glass sphere in a house of marble and imported fixtures. It looked absurd. It looked right. Noah stopped by that afternoon with a bottle of champagne and documents. "Sheriff's deed is recorded. You're officially the owner. No liens except your own mortgage to yourself," which is hilarious. By the way, what happens to that Juneberry Capital can discharge it whenever you want. You basically owe yourself money. It's a paper exercise. We stood on the deck, looking out at Lake Merrow. The unfinished boat dock jutted into the water like a broken promise. "You going to complete it?" he asked. "No, going to tear it down. Start fresh." What about them? I'd been tracking them through family gossip. They'd worn out Uncle Rich's welcome after 2 weeks, moved to a weekly rental motel off Highway 9. Carl had taken a job at his old insurance company entry level, $22 an hour. Marjorie was substituting again, telling everyone who'd listen about their temporary setback and the misunderstanding with their daughter. "They'll survive," I said. "They're cockroaches. They always survive." "And you?" I thought about it. "I'm learning to live in a house bought with betrayal. It's harder than I expected." The criminal charges were filed the following week. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. The DA had built a solid case. Carl and Marjorie hired a public defender, claimed poverty. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Their trial was set for February. I'd have to testify, face them across a courtroom, detail every theft under oath. But that was months away. For now, I had a house to make mine. I started small, painted the guest room a soft blue, nothing like the aggressive beige Marjorie had chosen. Bought furniture from estate sales, older pieces with history that wasn't mine but wasn't theirs either. Cooked simple meals in the elaborate kitchen, using 1 burner on the 6-burner range. The family divided predictably. Half thought I was cruel, a daughter without heart. The other half whispered their own stories, loans never repaid, gifts that came with invoices, emotional manipulation disguised as love. Aunt Carol visited twice, bringing casseroles and gossip. "They're telling people you tricked them," she said, "that you planned this all along." In a way, they're right. I did plan it. The moment I saw my empty account, I planned every move. And you're not sorry. I looked around the kitchen, my kitchen at the marble they'd chosen with my money, the view they'd stolen, the life they'd tried to build on my bones. I'm sorry they made it necessary. I'm not sorry I won. 3 weeks after the eviction, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper in Marjorie's handwriting. "I hope you're happy in your stolen house. You may have won legally, but you've lost your soul. No property is worth destroying family. Mom." Mom. She'd signed it Mom, as if that title still meant something, as if it ever had. I burned the letter in the limestone fireplace, watched their words turn to ash and drift up the chimney. Then I made hot chocolate in my stolen kitchen, sat in my stolen living room, and felt perfectly at home in my stolen house. Because it wasn't stolen, it was reclaimed. It was justice in the shape of cedar shingles and lake views. It was 7 years of night flights transformed into hardwood and stone. The next morning, I hung a new sign by the door, a grant, in simple brass letters. No Whitaker's Rest, no family legacy, no dreams or pretense, just my initial, my name, my house. I stood on the lawn where I'd first discovered their betrayal, bank statement long since shredded. The morning light caught the lake, turning it gold and endless. Behind me, my house stood solid and mine. They'd taught me that family was transactional, love was conditional, and trust was weakness. They'd taught me to take what I could and justify it later. They'd taught me to be ruthless. The student had finally surpassed the teachers. I placed the snow globe on the mantel, tiny skaters forever spinning in their sealed world. It was the only thing in the house they'd given me that was ever really free. Everything else, the walls, the floors, the view of Lake Merrow, I'd paid for myself. Twice, if you counted the emotional cost, but the price was finally settled. The debt was finally cleared. I was home. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Mia's situation? Your comments and experiences make this community special. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more stories like this one.